Hi and welcome back. There's something that has been really bothering me in that haunting way, as if the pieces are all right in front of me, but there's still something I'm missing. I need to share it with you because maybe you'll see additional pieces that I have somehow overlooked. Or maybe that's the wrong analogy. Maybe it's more of a magic eye puzzle where you have to squint and cross your eyes to see the hidden image. I could never see those. Have you seen Turtleboy's video showing the views from across the street from 34 Fairview? Both homes have security cameras. One was for sure a Ring camera. The other, I recognize the shape of it, but I can't remember the brand. I think it may be an Arlo system. In my opinion, the neighboring cop, we'll call him Deputy Chief Neighbor, residing at 31 Fairview, consciously and deliberately obstructed justice when he claimed there was nothing of value recorded on his security camera. Trust me, bro. He also failed in his duty to uphold the oath of honor from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, which reads, "On my honor, I will never betray my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always maintain the highest ethical standards and uphold the values of my community and the agency I serve." They formatted it weirdly, so I did too. I can't tell you if he upheld the Canton Police Department oath because, like so many other things, it's either not published or buried. And I can't tell you if he upheld the oath for Massachusetts law enforcement because, like so much else that comes from the Commonwealth, it's difficult to read and even more difficult to comprehend. But I can tell you that Deputy Chief Neighbor did not testify at the trial, despite his proximity and his participation during the events that occurred on the morning that Officer John O'Keefe's lifeless body was found approximately 20 meters from Deputy Chief's own doorstep. I've deliberately placed the photo of this honorable moment of him being sworn into his position as Deputy Chief so that it is facing the vantage point from his front door and from his camera. And since he wasn't a witness, this video isn't witness intimidation, is it? This may be the closest that we get to Deputy Chief Neighbor facing the truth. Trust me, bro. And I want you to really look at the photo of the property too. Keep looking. See if you notice anything. Tell me what you see in the comments. So, Turtleboy obtained the angle of Deputy Chief Neighbor's security camera, and I noticed in the video that the house has at least one other camera positioned above the garage. The starting photo was taken in the summer. Remember that these bushes along the right are not evergreen. They would have had bare branches, vastly improving the visibility of the Alberts home and driveway. What I've done from here forward is I've tried to adjust the brightness of the photo to reflect the passage of time and the accumulation of snow overnight and into the early morning, the day, and the evening of January 29th, 2022. Let's set the scene. At 6 p.m. on Friday, January 28th, the temperature was 30 degrees. By midnight, it was 29 degrees. In the moonlight, the grass was an eerie grayish-brown with a light dusting of white frost that increased as the hours passed and the snowflakes started to descend. They weren't the fat, wet snowflakes that melt when they hit the ground. These were the tiny, icy snowflakes that swirl in the wind and sting your cheeks and your bare hands. By 8 a.m., the temperature had dropped to 18 degrees and the snow had started to accumulate. So let's consider the events that Deputy Chief Neighbor's camera would have potentially caught during the 21-ish hours between 10 p.m. January 28th and 7 p.m. January 29th. Everyone at the Alberts residence departure time to the waterfall and in which vehicle. Every car that arrived to and departed from Brian Jr.'s birthday. The time of Colin Albert's arrival and departure, and by whom he was transported. The time of Allie McCabe's arrival and departure. The time of Brian Higgins' post-waterfall arrival, in what vehicle, his alleged driveway plow antics, where he parked, and when he left. The time of the residential Alberts' post-waterfall arrival, in which vehicle, and where they parked. The time of the McCabe's arrival, and the location where they parked. Karen and John's initial arrival. John exiting Karen's vehicle, approaching the house, and entering the house. The time of the Nagel vehicle's arrival. The time at which Karen's SUV moved forward across the front of the property. The timestamps at which Julie Nagel exited and re-entered the house. Karen's departure, including time, method, and direction. Was there really a 3-point turn, as Matt McCabe alleges? The time of the McCabe's departure, including Matt's return trip into the house to retrieve his coat. It is reasonable to believe that Deputy Chief Neighbor's camera would have also documented how, when, and by whom John's phone arrived on the lawn, when Tristan arrived, retrieved Caitlin, and departed, and what vehicle he was driving. If Brian Higgins made additional visits that night, at what time, and in what vehicle. How John arrived on the lawn, when John arrived on the lawn, who helped get John onto the lawn, the arrival and departure time and related details of the Ford Edge, including any witnesses or accomplices. Remember, no efforts were made to investigate this vehicle, who owned it, who was driving it, why it was there at that time. This unknown person would have been an eyewitness to John being on the lawn. The times that plow trucks passed by, which truck and in which direction. The times any other vehicle passed by as potential witnesses for investigators to interview. If or when Karen passed by around 5 a.m., as the Commonwealth alleges. The exact time and conditions of the arrival of Karen, Carrie, and Jen. The exact times and order of arrival of the first responder vehicles. And lest you think that this is an exaggeration, I want to show you actual photos taken by the next-door neighbors of the Alberts, who were clearly awoken by the commotion outside. By the way, that house we're looking at, that's Deputy Chief Neighbors. Here's another angle toward the tree line dividing these neighbors from the Alberts. The shaded area in the foreground is not a body, just to put your mind at ease. But that house in the background? Yup, Deputy Chief Neighbor. Back to our list of what the camera saw. How long John was in the cold, a critical piece of data. Could that detail have impacted his treatment plan? The duration, departure time, and departure order of first responder vehicles. The exact time and to whom Deputy Chief Neighbor provided the solo cups and the grocery bag. How the initial investigators conducted their search. Was the missing shoe visible on the security camera? Exactly when Jen McCabe entered 34 Fairview to wake the Alberts. Exactly when Matt McCabe arrived that morning. Exactly when Brian Higgins arrived and in which vehicle. Did he park in the same place he did the night before? My guess is no. Exactly when Julie Albert arrived with those stupid donuts. Which car did she try to place them into? Do any of these people lock their car doors? Which door did Brian Albert lean out to beckon her inside? Let's pause to see the amount of snowfall. According to these photos, there were 3.5 inches of snow in Canton at 8:18 a.m. on January 29th, 2022. By 12:31 p.m., there were 5 inches of snow in Canton. These screenshots have been shared widely. I attempted to authenticate them, and I scrolled through her Twitter, trying to get back to January of 2022. It would only let me go back to August 4th of 2022. She's a talented photographer of all sorts of different things, and these photos are definitely consistent with her composition style, so I believe that these are authentic. However, since they're not presently posted on her Twitter, I'm guessing she doesn't want any attention about them, so I've covered her username info out of respect for her privacy. Okay, back to what our list. Exactly when Michael Lank entered 34 Fairview, the duration of his visit, his departure, his time of return, the duration, and his time of his second departure. At what time everyone departed after the friends and family meeting that morning. What, if any, efforts were made to secure the crime scene? You'd think Deputy Chief Neighbor's camera footage would have been used as a weak attempt to monitor the crime scene. Wouldn't that be the absolute least they could do? Who else was present throughout the day? At what time the missing shoe became visible to the crime scene, and if the shoe received any help arriving to its location? What time the CERT team arrived, including which vehicles, how many humans, and anyone else who was present. Footage of how the CERT team conducted their grid search, including the moment that someone bent down and retrieved that shoe. What time the CERT team concluded their efforts, and in what order they departed. In my opinion, as a high-ranking officer, Deputy Chief Neighbor knew his colleagues were out there that morning. He knew he had a duty to act. As someone with years of experience, he would have quickly known that there would be a conflict of interest, and that therefore he was now a witness in possession of critical evidence. He would have known he had an ethical duty to preserve the evidence and give it to the appropriate agency. Since his agency was conflicted out, he was not the authority to decide if there was evidentiary value on those recordings. He was in possession of the single biggest, most crucial collection of evidence, and he personally, unilaterally deemed it insignificant, claiming it recorded nothing of value. To my knowledge, nobody else ever reviewed it, and it's gone. How is this not evidence tampering or obstruction of justice? How is this not a dereliction of duty? Not to mention, what kind of leader hands over solo cups and grocery bags to his team and doesn't come out to supervise and support them? And why didn't the first responders knock on the Alberts' door first? They're the party people. If anyone was going to have solo cups, it would have been them. Well, we know why the first responder who lived at 34 Fairview was playing possum inside his house. But Deputy Chief Neighbor was a first responder too. Why wasn't he the first on the scene? Why were two civilian women who loved the victim attempting to perform CPR when we know that force is critical to resuscitation and that to do it properly, or with the greatest possibility of success, you need to break some ribs. And it's easier to break ribs if you're trained, stronger, and not emotionally attached to the victim. Why wasn't Deputy Chief Neighbor there at all, even from a curiosity standpoint? How could anyone feel safe and secure under his leadership when he couldn't be arsed to step out his front door and tend to a dying man who was fewer than 60 feet away? We're supposed to believe that Canton is a small, close-knit community where generations upon generations have established roots, like it's some kind of Mayberry where everyone knows everyone and their brother and their grandma. But Deputy Chief Neighbor, who literally cannot claim he was asleep since he provided the evidence collection materials, whose warm woolly socks and boots and snow jacket and mittens were right there in his own closet, couldn't be bothered to step outside? What's his excuse? And why wasn't he on the witness stand answering these questions? Deputy Chief Neighbor's camera would have caught upwards of 40 absolutely critical events, including the alleged vehicle strike. If a vehicle strike had happened. But there was nothing of any value on Deputy Chief Neighbor's perfectly positioned security camera. Trust me, bro. How many millions of tax dollars and hours were wasted chasing down irrelevant data and obscure witnesses to piece together this bizarre timeline from butt dials and butt answers and butt return calls, footsteps and deleted Google searches, what the band was playing at the waterfall, when the whole event was recorded, all because of Deputy Chief Neighbor's "Trust me, bro." And don't even get me started on what the other non-officer neighbor's camera would have documented. Didn't anyone even ask them for their footage? I'm still pulling together my Making a Crime Scene video showing the revelations from my scaled model of 34 Fairview, and believe me when I say there are some big observations. Dare I say, trust me, bro. So please make sure that you have liked and subscribed so that you'll be notified when it is released. And until the next one, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of our community. I love you.